Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm glad you didn't hear what I just said because I said good morning to everybody, which is usually not. I have no idea what time of the day it is sometimes, so it's for all of you. So good evening and welcome to a really exciting beginning for all of our juniors in the class of 2023. So our school counseling department puts together a really this program over 3 workshop series. You'll have one tonight, one in the spring, and one in the fall of senior year. And I think what it does for all of the juniors that are in this room and watching from home, and our families that are here tonight, and of course the many that may be watching virtually, that it really does give you, in pieces, really the important elements of really the planning for your next step in life. And I know the fact that for so many of you in this room, because we watch our seniors, there's so much excitement, but there's also a lot of anxiousness and stress around it. But I will tell you this, that the ride that you're on over the next year of applying and exploring and identifying those schools that are the right fit for you, I think is such an incredible experience. And you know the fact that when you finally make that commitment and say, this is where I'm going to go, you know it's going to be the right place for you, and do that. I wanted to share this really quick story with you because I think it just speaks to really this process. I always had in my head, I was a kid who had in my mind I was going to Boston University. That's what I wanted. And all through high school, that's what I wanted, and that's what I was going to do. My parents had a very different, kind of thought in their mind of what I was going to do. I ultimately didn't end up going to BU. And I got in, but I was not able to do it. And so I ended up going to Bridgewater State, and I will tell you that I went in kicking and screaming, that I was that kid who was like, this is not what my plan was. But I have to tell you, I knew as I got started that this is what I was meant to be. And I loved it, and I think so much of who I am as a person, who I am as a professional, all came from that experience I had at Bridgewater. So I just say it to you because as you go on this ride, you may think you know what you want, but as you start the engagement and the journey and the research, you may find that it's a very, very different place where you land and trust the process. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you one of our school counselors who does a really great job of putting all this together, Mr. Steve Bergman, and just to thank you to our panel, who I know you'll meet tonight, who have a lot of wisdom and experience to be able to guide us through the beginning. So thank you to all of you for being here tonight. So have a good night, everyone. So welcome. We're so glad to see so many people out tonight. We thought when we were offering it virtually that we'd be standing here in an empty auditorium. So it's great to see everybody. You're probably sick of being in too, right? Yeah, everyone needs to get out at this point. So we're really excited that you're here. I too, actually, Paul was one of my students when I worked at Bridgewater State. I was my boss. But I was there for 6 years. I went to Framingham State undergrad, and I had a wonderful time there. Great. It was a great experience. I spent 6 years at Bridgewater working there as a resident director, and I got my master's degree while I was there. And there is a huge, huge part of Bridgewater in me. More so, I would say, than Framingham, and I was pretty involved there. So it was a great experience there, and the college was that.
Kept that small school feel. So you get the resources of a large university and the attention of a smaller college. So we're not here to talk about Bridgewater tonight, but since Paul was sharing, and he was on the fly, he didn't even know he was speaking tonight, so it's good he had that story in his back pocket. Anyway, so before we get to the panel, the first thing we're going to do is, I don't know why this is flashing like that, but we're not going to worry about it. We are going to go over the workbook, and I'm going to show you how to do a college search on Naviance. For the students that are here, how many of you have actually done a college search on Naviance? Hands? That many. Oh, I see one in the back. Well, we're going to show you how to do that because it'll make your lives a lot easier. Has anybody here used any other search programs out there? College Board or any of those? Okay. So there are others. Naviance is nice because it's kind of one-stop shopping. Everything you need is right there and saved for you, and you can access it anytime you want. But don't get too used to Naviance because this is the last year we're using it. We're moving on to a program called SCORE, which most of the high schools in the South Shore have transitioned to this year. Now, we've already set it up with our tech department, It's up and it's ready to go. We just haven't been trained in it yet. So what we're hoping to be able to do is show you tonight how to do your college search on Naviance. And then in the April workshop, we will show you how to use SCORE for everything else. So use Naviance while you've got it, and it will be helpful. And then we will teach you how to use the SCORE program. And parents will have access to both those programs also. So when you came in, you should have got 3 different things: the college planning workbook and the agenda on yellow paper right here, and an evaluation form. And in the rush of the day, I forgot to bring pencils down. So maybe we can, Mr. Brannigan pokes his head back in, I can get him to grab some pencils for us for the evaluation. We do appreciate you taking the time to do an honest evaluation of the program. This program, I've been doing this program now, not just at this school, but at a couple other schools, probably going back now, probably about close to 20 years. And if you looked at what we did that first year compared to what we do now, it's changed considerably, not because the process has changed that much, but because of the feedback we get from the parents and the students. So it's important that we get that, so we make sure we're meeting your needs. As a footnote to that, please don't make a comment that you wanted more info on financial aid. This is not a financial aid workshop. This is how to get started in your college planning process. We have a special night dedicated to financial aid in October. Ms. Byrne, one of the other school counselors here, is the person that will set that up, and we'll send an email out to let you know when that evening will be. We are not experts on financial aid, and we would not do it justice if we tried to talk to you about financial aid, so we call the experts in for that one. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to switch over to the workbook, and we're going to, on the inside cover of the workbooks that you get, there is a timeline of things that you should be doing. Now, it's not cast in stone, but if you can roughly stay to this timeline for the most part, you will pretty much breeze through this process. It's not a hard process, it's just a very detailed and lengthy process, and a costly one at that. I had a student actually today that came in and she had requested transcripts to go off to 27 colleges. I said, do you realize there's an application fee for each one of those? And the application fee on the low end for community colleges is $10. On the high end, could be $100. I would say on average, you're probably looking $50 to $65 per application. So doing some quick math with her, I said, you're looking at over $1,300 in application fees, and you're only going to go to one of these schools. We do recommend 4 to 6 colleges. We will process as many applications and send out as many transcripts as you want. We just don't want you to waste time filling out applications of schools that you really aren't going to consider, or looking at numbers, they're looking for something that's way, way up here and you're kind of over here someplace. And we certainly don't want you wasting money either. It can get quite costly. So, but we will be working with you on that over the course of time. So looking at January, you can see you're here for College Planning Night, where to begin, so you can check that off the list. And we are going to be, as I said, we're going to be emailing out the parents their log-on information for Naviance. So if you want to look at and do some stuff on Naviance on your student's account, you can do that. For any student that does not remember how to log in, because we did, put you on this when you were freshmen, and then with COVID, you didn't have much of an opportunity to do much sophomore year. If you forgot how to access it, just email your counselor, and they will send you the login information. So if you can just go through, one of the things we added to the timeline this year is there used to be a national college fair, usually at the end of April, beginning of May every year in Boston. And the last few years, they have not done it because of COVID. But what they've come up with are a whole bunch of virtual college fairs, and they've actually broken them down into general college fairs and then some college fairs for if you're interested in the performing or visual arts, if you're interested in STEM. So if you look through this timeline, you can see what those different fairs are. And at the bottom, there's a link to show you how to register to attend any of those fairs. There's also SAT and ACT information in there, dates and deadlines. And when we're doing our next workshops and all that fun stuff, as you start to get into this as later in your junior year, and especially your senior year, you're going to see important deadlines for applications and things of that sort. So, moving along, these are the school counselors for the people who don't know who works with who. Now, there was a little bit of a shuffle in the guidance, the school counselor caseloads this year. Middleborough High School now has about 944 students, and there's only 3 of us. So it's about 315 students per counselor, which is a lot. That piece aside, we used to do a straight break in the alphabet. Miss Byrne had A through E. Ash Barron had F through N, and I had N through Z. Didn't matter how many people fell within that. Well, it turned out Ash Barron ended up having, in this class here, about 92 or 96 students in the junior class, which was almost half the junior class. Now, Miss Byrne and I weren't complaining about that, but it wasn't fair, and as much as, Miss Byrne and I are the ones that gained the most, and but we were the ones saying we have to even this out a little bit. So that's why there was a shuffle in the caseloads of who you're working with. So I picked up some of the M's, and Miss Byrne picked up some of the F's, and then some of you that were in the middle stayed right where you were. So we did speak about all the students, so we've been filled in on any significant or important background that we might need to know about you as a student. But if there's something you feel we should know, you haven't gotten to meet us yet, please make it a point to email or stop in and see us and set up some time so we can get to know you a little bit better. So all the workbooks start out with a word from the school counseling department, and that just basically tells you what we're responsible for, what you're responsible for, and how we're going to make this whole thing work. We do not pick your schools, we advise you. We will suggest schools to you. We will give you a fair evaluation of whether or not we feel the school is a realistic school, a stretch school, or a safety school. Please don't take that personally, but based on all of our years of experience, we have a pretty good handle on, based on GPAs and class ranks and testing scores, where you stand. It's not an exact science. We're not going to tell you not to apply to a school, but we're going to tell you where we feel your sure bets are and where it might be more of a stretch. So where to begin? There's a checklist on this page, and it just talks a little bit about what you should be doing by mid-April. Our next workshop is going to be towards the end of April. The date is in the workbook. Knowledge you should have, and then things you should be paying attention to. Now, we're going to talk about testing. So there's 2 types of tests. There's the ACT and the SAT. Most of you are probably familiar with the SAT. It's been around forever. The ACT isn't as well known here on the East Coast. Probably over the last 20 years or so, it's really started to gain momentum, and people are starting to take it. Back years and years ago, if you're going to school in the Midwest or the West, you took an ACT. And if you're going to school in the East, you took an SAT. That was purely marketing and geography. College Board, which sponsors the SATs, is located in Princeton, New Jersey, and located there and marketed their test on the eastern side of the country. ACT, which is American College Testing, is located in Iowa, and they marketed their test more in the Midwest and the West. Today, 99% of the colleges will accept either one of those tests. The differences between the tests: the SATs have 2 sections. Critical reading and writing is one section, and mathematics is the other section. The ACTs are broken down into 4 different subjects: English, math, science, reasoning, and there's an optional writing section. English, math, reading, science, and an optional writing section. Excuse me. I'll let the admissions counselors talk about whether or not they would recommend you taking the writing section. You do not need to take both the SAT and the ACT. We actually recommend that our students start with the SAT. How many of you here took the PSAT this year? Excellent. So now you have some data. Hopefully it's good data. If you are, just don't be discouraged. The reason we give you the PSAT, and P stands for practice, it doesn't count, nobody sees it except for you and us, is to assess where you're at. And if you do need to do some preparation, specifically what areas? If you did really well in the math, then we're not going to tell you to prep in the math area. We're going to tell you, and if you didn't do as well on the other side, then we're going to tell you to work on the other side, the reading and the writing. Bridgewater State offers an SAT prep program. There's other ones out there I'm sure you've heard of, the Kaplan program, which is very expensive. You're probably looking at about $900 for that one. The Bridgewater one, I will tell you, is just as good as Kaplan, and it's probably about $350, I think, for that program. I don't know if you know that or not. Okay. And there's also the best prep you can do. Two things. Work hard in your classes, do the best you can in school, and use Khan Academy. Khan Academy has a partnership with College Board. It's free, and College Board doesn't give you anything for free, where you can actually take your PSAT scores and link them in to Khan Academy, and it'll set up specific prep for you based on your PSAT scores. That is a great program. Anybody that's invested a little bit of time, I'm not saying you have to spend days and nights and weekends on it, but investing just a little bit of time doing that has shown some good marked improvement in their scores. So start with the SATs. We recommend that you take your first SAT in May. March is a little bit early. Again, you want to get as much English and math under your belt before you take those tests. You want to, and the June test, you can do the June test if you have a major conflict and you can't be there on the May test. Let's say you have a game or something like that. Sure, take the June one. The only difference between the May and the June is by the time you get your June scores back, school will most likely be closed, and if you have questions for us, we're not going to be here to be able to answer those for you. But the May scores, there'll be plenty of time to do that. We recommend taking the SATs twice. I wouldn't recommend doing them back-to-back, so I wouldn't recommend doing a May and a June. I would do a May and maybe an October, or a May and a November. There's an August one, too. We're not a test center for August. We're a test center in May, and we're a test center in November. If you want to take it any other time, you're going to have to take it at another school. Now, the SATs are different from the PSATs, where you have to actually register directly with College Board. We registered you for the PSATs. We can't do that for the SATs. So you have to go into your College Board accounts, and you'll need a credit card, and you will need to register and select the school that you want to take them at, the date and the school you want to take them at. For those of you who were wondering about SAT subject tests, they no longer exist. College Board eliminated them last year, so that's one less thing you have to worry about. So let's say you take the SATs twice and you're still not happy with your scores and you feel you did adequate amount of prep in between the two tests. Then we would recommend taking the ACTs. It's a little bit of a different style of a test. The scores, it's a different scale, but usually students score comparably from one to the other, but taking an SAT for a third or a fourth time, especially if you're not doing any significant prep work, College Board's own statistics show that 2/3 of the people aren't going to show any marked improvement on them. So we recommend doing something different at that point. Try the ACT and see if you do better on the subject-based test. Okay, so the school counseling website, for those of you who do not know, we do have a website, and I'm going to show you how to get there in a minute, and that's where you will find Naviance. All the workbooks for everything you need to do on Naviance and eventually score have these step-by-step instructions with little arrows pointing, what to click on and what to type in and all that and everything. So we try to make it as easy and simple as possible for you to navigate all these different programs to make life easier for you. And then on Naviance, we suggest over the summer you start your activity sheet. The activity sheet, it's like a resume. You're going to list all the activities you've done both in school and out of school, mainly for the last 3 years and what you plan on doing your senior year. Excuse me. And there's another sheet you're going to fill out in the fall for your counselor to assist us in making sure when we write your letter of recommendation, we're not missing anything that you feel is important about your story and why you belong at the colleges that you're applying to. But we recommend that you start the activity sheet now, save it as a Word document, Do not put it in Google. Google will change the formatting significantly. And then just save it someplace so you can go in, you can edit it and add things into it as you have more wonderful experiences along the way. So here are the step-by-step instructions about how to get there. You can save this in Naviance, but we're recommending you don't do that since we're getting rid of Naviance. We recommend that you save it on your desktop or on a flash or something like that. In addition, the activity sheet also doubles as the second page of the scholarship application. So next February, not this February, but the following February when you're seniors, when the scholarship booklet comes out, you'll have this done, and it's page 2 of the application, so you'll be halfway through the scholarship application. Students always end up shortchanging themselves when it comes to what to put on their college applications and what to put on their activity sheets. So we started to compile a list of in-school and some of the more popular out-of-school activities that you want to include. So some of the questions that come up is, well, I played field hockey my freshman year and I never played again. Yes, you want to include that on there. Okay, the admissions counselors want to see everything that you've done over the last 4 years. Now, if you did the Walk for Hunger once in 8th grade and you never did it again, they don't care about that. If you have been doing dance since you were 4 or 5 years old and you're still doing it, obviously a major commitment, you want to put that on there. So you can see some of the things we put there. I always ask students, do you have a part-time job? No. Do you babysit? Yeah. Babysitting's a job with a lot of responsibility. So just read these over, make sure you're not shortchanging yourself on any of your activities. So now's the time to start doing your self-appraisal and trying to figure out what your favorite classes are and how to match those up with different majors and then find colleges that offer those majors. So there's several different programs that are on Naviance that you can use. One of them is called the Do What You Are, which is an interest inventory. And then that one takes about 30 to 40 minutes to do. I would recommend doing that one. That one will give you a whole bunch of information about your learning style and for a job to be satisfying, what types of environment should you be in, and all that stuff. So I would recommend starting with that one and see if that helps you. For those of you who are kind of, I have no idea what I want to major in, that's a good starting point for you. And then matching self to school, which our panel is going to discuss in a few minutes. And we can't stress enough to organize. Organize, organize, organize. I know I've had a lot of parents over the years that have taken a spare bedroom or the dining room table or someplace and just kind of, as they say, set up kind of their war headquarters. That's where they just had all folders for everything. As schools were getting eliminated from the process, they just completely removed them, and just they kept everything in one place. So I need my activity sheet, boom, it's in this folder right here, and all that. So we'll let we'll let our student and our parent talk about what they did to keep themselves organized. And these are the step-by-step instructions of how to do a college search on Naviance. And I am going to run you through a sample college search in a minute. Tips for visiting colleges. So most colleges are doing visits again, in-person visits. There's some that are still doing virtual ones too, but if you have the opportunity to do an in-person one, there's nothing like getting on the campus and seeing it. We always recommend trying, April vacation is usually a great time to go on a college visit. The weather's getting a little bit better, and you see the college with students on campus. You can go in the summertime. You're not going to get the same feel for the campus. There's not a lot of students around in the summertime, and there's not going to be a lot of students to talk to and ask about how they like it there and what they like, what they don't like, and all that fun stuff. So we recommend doing it. Now, if you're looking at schools that are a pretty significant distance away, obviously you're not going to be traveling everywhere and doing that. Excuse me, the universal deadline to put a deposit down into college is May 1st. So if you have done all your research and you're still interested in a school that's, let's say, out in California, and you apply and you get in, and you're still seriously considering it, maybe during a vacation period you can take a trip out there and see it, since it's one of your final schools on your list, okay? As I said earlier, speak to students. Admissions counselors are okay to talk to for basic information, but then a lot of them aren't close in age to you and have the same interests as you. Their job is also to tell you about the college. They're not going to necessarily tell you, oh, the bad part of our college is. They're going to tell you all the wonderful things that they're doing right now on those campuses. And I always feel I'm going to insult my admissions counselors when I say this, but as a former person that worked on a college campus, I understood that too. And you need to know what life is like after 5 o'clock on a college campus when everyone else, all the adults are going home. What's there to do on the weekends? You're there for the academics, no question about that, but if you're not happy in your social environment, that can have a significant impact on your grades and how you're feeling about being there. And again, we want you to make sure that you're getting as much information as possible, so when you put that money down, you're really sure this is where you want to be. Because the worst thing is if you have to transfer. Sometimes it's a reality and you have to do that. Sometimes it can be a very costly and expensive reality. So if we can avoid that up front and really kind of get all that information, that's best. Talk to the students. Ask them what it's like to be there. If they had to do it over again, would they still choose that school? What do they do on the weekends? Some schools, a lot of students pack up on the weekends and go home. If you're going to be going to a school from a pretty significant distance away and you don't have a car, it could be lonely on the weekends. Just find out what the environment is like and if it's something that you feel will suit you. When I was a younger counselor, I used to do a lot of college tours. And I remember one particular, I'll mention the school because they're not in business anymore, Becker College in Worcester. I was out at their Leicester campus. Anybody been to Leicester? Anybody know what Leicester is? It's pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And we were walking around. We were on campus for probably maybe 2-3 hours. And then they gave us a tour of the whole place. We walked through the residence halls. Every door to every room was closed. That's a pretty good indication of what type of community that is. If you're a social person, that might not be the right environment. But anyways, we're in the info session, and they asked us what questions we had. So I raised my hand. Being the wise ass that I am, I said, where are the students? I was there for 2.5 hours. I didn't see a single student. And they were like, oh, they're on class. I said, for 2.5 hours? So, again, red flags for me anyways, okay? So make sure and for a lot of you guys, you've never had to ask any of these questions. How safe is it on a college campus? How well lit is a college campus? Is there a shuttle service at night? Those are all important things that maybe living in Middleborough you don't have to worry about. So it's really important you start thinking about all those things because you're going to be in a semi-independent environment and mom and dad aren't going to be thinking about those things for you. Okay, so here are some of the more, I talked about a lot of these questions already, so you can look that over. Make sure you get them, they don't do a lot of mailing lists anymore, it's mostly email lists. So you can get as much information about the schools. And here are the upcoming events. So there are all your virtual college fairs. The College Planning Night for juniors and their families, what you should be doing over the summer is Wednesday, April 27th at 6 p.m. here. And that will pick up where we leave off tonight and carry you through the summer. And then we'll have college application boot camp, which we'll talk about more later on in the summer. And then college planning for seniors and their families, the nuts and bolts of applying to college will be in September. I mentioned the financial aid night earlier, and the scholarship information night too. And here are some the sample activity sheet of how to fill out an activity sheet. And there's a glossary of terms in the back of the book also, in case you hear an acronym. There's lots of acronyms in college. Or just a word you weren't familiar with. It'll give you an opportunity to see if we have it back there for definition. So what we're going to do now is I am going to show you how to do a college search. You don't need to see my email. So here's the Middleborough High School website. And we're going to click on About Us and go to the Counseling Department. And then we're going to scroll down on the left here to where it says, so first of all, junior information. Excuse me. So here's the workbook from tonight in the blue. That gold one is last year's part 2. So it will be updated. It's not a lot of updates other than dates and times and stuff, but it'll be very similar. And then the video from tonight, in case you want to review it or you have a friend that couldn't make it tonight, will be posted there once we finish up tonight. But let's continue to scroll down and go to the Naviance link. And we start off by putting in the Middleborough zip code, and we click on Middleborough High School, student. And there is our fictitious student, Ima. And what we're going to do, let me show you how to access the activity sheet. So this is the home page. So when you log into your account, you scroll down, and you're going to see document resources over here. And you're going to see 3 forms: letter of rec info sheet for teacher, letter of rec info sheet for counselor, and the activity sheet. The only one you need to worry about right now is the activity sheet. You click on it, and you open it up. And you can start typing right on it. Okay? Okay, so let's go back to the home page. And we'll do a quick college search. So let's go to colleges I'm thinking about. And then over on the left-hand side here, advanced college search. And then what you can do is, if you're looking for a 4-year school, now, quick warning here, if you get too specific, you will come up with 0 schools. So don't click off every activity and every sport, and only click off the things that are really the most important. If you truly, truly want to play softball in college, then click softball. If you'd be happy playing intramural softball, don't click softball, because it's going to only identify schools that offer a softball program. Okay, so for most of our students, they're looking for a co-ed school. Public or private, I would leave it no preference. Now, campus surroundings: large city, small city, large town, small town, rural. That can be a little tricky. What I usually tell people, like a school like UMass Amherst is in the rural community of Amherst. It's a very small town. But the college is a little city unto itself. There's so much to do on that campus. They have their own stores, their own bowling alleys. They have everything you can imagine on the campus. So it's not like you're stuck out in the woods someplace. What I usually tell people is, if you know you're not a big city person, you don't see yourself in a Boston or a New York or something like that, click everything except for large city. Okay? If you really, truly have no preference, you can just leave it blank. But for our purposes here, we're going to go small city, large town, small town, rural. And you can do as many searches as you want, and you can save them. You can do a search by location. You can do a search by major. There's a whole bunch of different ways. And then we're going to go to next. If you click religious affiliation, that's going to significantly narrow down your list of schools. If it's important to go to a school that has a religious affiliation, absolutely click it. Okay? Distance: you can do so many miles from home, or you can click an entire region or individual states. I would say on average, our students tend to usually apply to schools in this area right here. People don't like Vermont and Maine a lot for some reason. I don't know why. So let's just keep it at that for now, and then we're going to click next. This is really tricky. Less than 2,000. That might seem like a very small college when you consider, some colleges have over 20,000 people. But just because a school has name recognition, just because they have a football team or a basketball team that's on ESPN every Saturday, doesn't mean it's a large school. A school like the University of Miami is probably about 7,000 students on campus. Bridgewater is bigger than Miami, but they have a powerhouse football program. More NFL players have come out of Miami than any other college in the United States. So people think it's a huge school. Even Bridgewater. Okay? Bridgewater is a Division III school. That's why you don't see their athletic program. That's why you don't see them on TV all the time. What you might not know is they've won the Division III World Series several times in the past few years. It's just not covered on TV. So And there's a lot of really great schools, like Clark University hovers around that 2,000 mark. So if you are interested in a school like Clark, which is a great school, and you say, oh, 2,000 is too small, it'll never show up on your list. So I would say the average size school is probably around this range right here, okay? And I would even click off this one just to cover myself. If you don't see yourself at a school where you're going to be in a lecture hall, a Northeastern, a BU, a UMass, Amherst, then I would skip the 15, a UNH, I would skip the 15 to 20 or more than 20. Percent accepted, percent minority backgrounds, if that's very, very important to you, absolutely click it. If not, I would leave it blank because it's going to, again, significantly limit the schools that show up on your list. Percent from out of state and percent male and female, I would skip those also. Why is this not going to the next page? Percent accepted. This is also a little misleading too, okay? Large schools have the opportunity to accept a larger percentage of students. Small schools can only accept a smaller percentage. So sometimes you say, oh, well, you know, if they take less than 25%, they must be a very elite school. No, they must be a very small school too. So I would leave percent accepted blank for now. You can always sort your list, your final list later on by percent accepted. Again, with the athletics, I would only click the athletics if it's absolutely a must for you to play at the NCAA level. If you're perfectly happy playing intramural or just getting together with your friends and throwing a ball around, I would leave that blank. Majors. So let's type in, we'll put business in. How's that? And then we'll click go. And then it's going to tell you all the different types of business programs that you can apply to. So let's do this. Let's go business. Management marketing, we'll add that. Business general, we'll add. Okay. And then we're going to go and we're going to type in, I'm thinking about psychology also. And there's a whole bunch of different types of psychology. So let's go counseling psychology. Let's go applied psychology. And let's find a couple more in there. Do this one. Oops. Okay. So we've picked the majors that we're interested in, and then we're going to click next. Cost. Well, cost will be a factor. Save it for the end. Never let the cost of a school limit you from applying there and finding out what you're going to get for financial aid. You may be able to go to a school for $70,000 that will cost you what it would cost you to go to a smaller school for maybe $25,000. So let the financial aid process play out and don't limit yourself right now with that. It is an important decision, but not at this moment. And then special programs. So if you're interested in like ROTC or any of those things, you can click one of those. And then we're going to view the matches, okay? So we still have a lot of schools. We have 73 schools in this search, okay? But we started with probably close to 7,000 schools. So here's your criteria, and then here are all the schools that came up in the search. So let's go and let's pick a couple of schools. We'll pick Bridgewater. And we'll look Stonehill. And we're going to add them to colleges I'm thinking about. Okay. And one of the other counselors was playing on this today, and they added other schools that I didn't select. So to save time, we'll just go with what's on here, okay? So now we've got Bentley, we've got Bristol Community College, and Bryant University. So if we click on Bryant, now it's telling me the other colleges were added. Now, this is not Bryant's website. This is still Naviance, but Naviance has a nice way of kind of breaking things down for you to kind of get more information about the school. They have a virtual tour you can click on. If you have a question, you can click on Communicate and send an email to admissions counselor. And then you can see what the student life is like. What do they offer for extracurriculars on campus, clubs and sports, the admissions, what they're looking for, what the costs are, what their deadlines are. And then over here, this is my favorite part, is this data that you see in these charts here are all from our previous, over the last 6 years or so, 5, 6 years, of students that have applied to colleges from Middleborough High School. So these are Middleborough students, former Middleborough students you're looking at. The green check mark means that they got accepted, and there's no red X's on this one in particular. A red X would mean they didn't get accepted. Now, this is confidential information. You can't see who these students are. And then there's wait lists. The blue circles are wait lists. And now this circle with the little person in it right here is this particular student based on their PSAT scores and their grade point average, okay? So when you look at this, and this isn't a good one to look at because there's just a little bit of data of acceptances, right now, it's too hard to determine whether or not, just by looking at this, whether or not this is a realistic school, a stretch school, or a safety school. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out of this. And I'm going to go back again. Colleges I'm thinking about. Okay. Oh, it's still not there. So I'm going to add a college to the list. So this is Bridgewater. So we have a lot of data for Bridgewater because we have a lot of students that apply there and eventually end up going. So if we look at the admissions on this one and we click and look, now that's more like it. We got a lot of data. Our students are very successful. I think since I've been here, this is my 6th year, I think I've had maybe 3 students that didn't initially get into Bridgewater. And the nice thing was Bridgewater didn't actually reject them. Bridgewater said, go to Massasoit, and then we will gladly take you. So they actually weren't rejected. So you can see right here that this blue circle, this student here, is right in the middle. So looking at this, that's a very realistic, almost leaning towards safety school for this person. If there were, these graphs tend to look more like kind of weather maps. You kind of got the acceptances, then you get the line of wait lists, and then you get the line of rejections. So you can, when you get on some of those, you'll see how you're faring against other former Middleborough students that have gone through this process. So that is kind of a reality check and kind of helps you gauge whether or not this is a school that you should be applying to, or what the chances are of getting into a school like that. Okay, so that is the basics of the college search. Okay, it's a lot of talking for a short amount of time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to introduce the panel. I'm going to have them come up on stage, and boy, everything's just popping off my screen today. So the panel wants to come up over here, and I will introduce them, and we'll get started for the panel part of the program. Okay, so, okay, Okay, we'll just make sure you guys are in the right order, that's all. From Bridgewater State College, we have Shannon Fernando Cole. Shannon is an old pro. She's been doing this for, what, how many years now, Shannon?
Probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think since I started doing this, yeah. So Shannon is very familiar with our students here in our school and has been a great resource for us. Sarah Thomashower from Stonehill College. This is her second year with us. This is her first year in person, because last year we had to do this virtually. So she is a wealth of information, and we do send a lot of folks over to Stonehill also. And then we have Jamie Reagan, whose daughter Emma just went through the process. So she is our parent, who's going to talk to you a little bit about, from her perspective, what she did, how much she got involved when she kind of stood back. And Olivia Rusciano is a senior here at Middleborough High School, and she is Penn State? Mm-hmm. Going to Penn State next year. She has did a wonderful job with this process. She really cruised right through it, made me feel useless as a counselor. So this is our panel, and first thing we're going to talk about tonight is matching yourself to the school. And we're going to go with Shannon to start off as the admissions counselor, how she feels you should best prepare yourself in that area.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. So obviously, as you can see, there are tons of schools to search through. So I always say having a good idea of what you're looking for, in terms of size of the campus, maybe area, geographic location is a good way to start. And the best way to kind of set apart the schools, because obviously on paper, everything is going to look pretty much the same in terms of what they're offering. So going to visit the campus itself, getting a feel for what the campus looks like, can you picture yourself there? Talking to the students and seeing what they have to offer is really going to be one of the biggest components to help you figure out what school might be a good fit for yourself. Obviously, if you do have a preference of public versus private, large school versus small school too, take those things into consideration, and cost as well. Cost is definitely something that, as Mr. Goldman said, don't rule it out, but also it's okay to be realistic if you know that it's not something you're going to be able to afford. It's okay to look at other options as well. But again, I always encourage students to visit as much as possible. You guys are juniors, so you have plenty of time to be checking out those schools throughout February and April vacation and throughout the summer as well, and even into the fall. So you do have ample time to really kind of feel out what those schools are actually like in person.
Great, thank you. Sarah.
It's hard to follow that. Hi, everyone. So I've been in admission for about 6 years, or almost 6 years, and I've worked with so many families who, at the end of their tours or end of their visits, they say, oh, this process is so stressful and it's so hard, I don't know what to do. I don't think any of you are going to be in that position because of all of the amazing prep work that Middleborough High is offering you to kind of get you through this process at each season of the process. So for matching yourself to a school, just like Shannon said, take into consideration those big picture things. So location, do you want to stay in Massachusetts? Do you want to go out of state? Do you want to be hours away, or do you want to be, a couple minutes away? That's a really good place to start. A religious affiliation, so Stonehill is a Catholic institution. Students are not required to participate in religious activity if they don't like, or if they don't want to, but that's something to take into consideration, is that do you want to attend a school that has a history of being affiliated with a congregation or a religious affiliation of any type? When it comes to the majors, most schools are going to offer a similar set of majors. So if you're looking for psychology, unless you're going to a very specific technical institution, I'd bet the ranch they're going to have psychology. If you're looking for business administration, a lot of schools are going to offer business administration, but some of them might have the business accreditation called AACSB. So there are going to be some things that you're probably going to find regardless of what school you're looking for, but there are other programs like nursing or engineering, or accredited programs like healthcare administration or like business accreditation, like I mentioned, that those are some things that you might want to type into that Naviance search or add as something that you're looking for specifically. Another piece of the puzzle, like Shannon said, is that visit. Look around at the students who are on campus. Do you relate to them? Do you feel like these are people that you could go to school with? Do you see activities on campus going on that you want to be a part of? This is going to be your home for the next 4 years, whether you live on campus or not. You're going to spend a majority of your time there. This is a place that you're going to move out of your childhood bedrooms probably and move on to this campus. So whatever schools you're touring, you want to be able to find a sense of home at that institution. It doesn't matter the name. I challenge everyone to erase the name of the school that they're visiting when they go and remove any, social influence or cachet that school may have, and look at it for what's going on directly in front of you. If you visit a school that everyone told you you're going to love, or everyone talks about it being a good school, but you don't feel like it's at home or it's comfortable, then that shouldn't be a school that you apply to. So remove name and what other people say about it from your own personal experience, because I find that students sometimes get really bogged down with, well, I'm supposed to like this school. Everyone tells me it's a good school. I'm supposed to like it. And you might not have that experience. So that's totally fine. Just because someone recommends a school doesn't mean you have to like it. So as you go through the process, I think a summation of all the things I just said, so sorry, this is the first time I've gotten out in a little while, so I'm really excited to be here. I'm sure we can all relate to that. Be honest with yourself. Be really honest with yourself. If you get on a campus and say, in 5 minutes, I don't like it here, leave. You don't have to stay. If someone recommends a school to you and you go and tour it and you say, man, I could never see myself there, that's fine. You don't have to like a school that your parent went to, that your uncle went to, that your guidance counselor recommends. You don't have to like it. It's a matter of where you feel comfortable and where you're at home. If a student comes up to me after a tour and says, thanks for having me, I don't really think it's going to be a good fit for me, no hard feelings. I want you to go to school where you feel comfortable. That's why we do our job, is to counsel you through the process, particularly with our school, but we'll help in any way that we can, and we want you to end up somewhere where you're comfortable and at home. So throughout that tour, be honest, find a sense of home, and you'll end up at the right place.
On a side note for that, I grew up in a very small town, a lot like Middleborough, and I got accepted to Northeastern. And I was, oh yeah, Northeastern's got a big name to it and all that. And I freaked out when I went to visit Northeastern. I grew up, we had an acre and a half of land. We had a horse, we had goats, we had wide open spaces. No goat jokes, please. The concept of stepping out my front door and being in the concrete and no place to spread out and do things blew my mind. And I ended up, like I said, going to Framingham State. At first I was like, oh God, Framingham State. That's not a name like Northeastern. But you know what? I got just as good an education there. It's the experiences, it's how much effort you put into the classes are all the same. It's just, people are, it's a question when you go grocery shopping. Do you always buy the brand name product, or do you buy the generic sometimes because it tastes just as good and but it's a lot less money? So that's all part of this whole search piece too. It's, what may be the perfect school for one person could be the worst fit for another. And the irony of the whole thing is, fast forward several years later, I end up living in Boston for 13 years. And I kept saying to myself, maybe I should have tried Northeastern, but no, at the time it would have been the right choice for me. So anyways, I want to skip over to Olivia, and if she can talk a little bit about what some of the things she did to kind of match up herself with the colleges she applied to.
Yeah, so hi guys. So what I really kept in mind the whole process was it's really for me. A lot of my friends, we were talking about it, like where you want to go, what you're interested in, but at the end of the day, it's where you're going to school. It's where you're going to be spending your money, where you're going, where you're sleeping, where you're eating. So the whole time I just kept in mind what's really important to me. I'm a very independent person, so I knew something farther away wasn't going to bother me so much. I had the contrast of my sister. She liked a very private school. She liked, a very high school feel of a smaller class, 18-to-1 for a teacher and student ratio. So I had a little bit of that contrast, but what I kept in mind the whole time pretty much was that it's really for me, and, you know, matching me and the school at the end of the day was just for me. Sorry if that's like, I said me a lot, but
It's all about you.
it really is. It's all about you.
Thank you. Jamie, as a parent, what did you see Emma going through, and and did you assist in that process?
Yeah, so thank you for having me tonight. So I have two daughters in the school. I have a senior, Emma, and I have a sophomore, Casey. And last year at this time, I was sitting in the same place as you, and I was extremely nervous. For me, I was nervous about a couple things. First off, I was really nervous that Emma wasn't going to be able to handle the process on her own, and I was also really nervous that the Middleborough schools, the guidance counselors wouldn't be able to be there for her if she needed help. And of course, in both of those realms, I was extremely fortunate to find any of my doubts, just not there, because the Middleborough Public Schools were wonderful, and Mr. Goldman helped her along with every step of the way. Emma was extremely independent in this process, which also I was fortunate for. I'm a total type A personality, which some of you might be as well. For me, when I applied to college, it was all paper and pen, and you sent it in the mail, and it's not that way anymore, so I was so nervous about that process. My biggest takeaway after really sitting in all of these meetings and all of these parent nights was kind of two things. First off, I wanted her immediately to sign up for that college boot camp, which I think Mr. Goldman and Liv might talk to you a little bit more about. So we did make sure we did that, but before she went to boot camp, there were really kind of two things that I pushed on her. Number one, I told her that she should definitely seek out teachers her junior year to write recommendations for. I am also a high school teacher, not in this district, but I know how important it is to find those teachers that you connect with and get them to write you, quality teacher recommendations. Additionally, so many teachers are so busy and they get so many requests that it's really important for you to talk to those teachers early. So that's something that I would recommend as not only as a parent but as a teacher. And then the second thing that I recommended to Emma, and fortunately she did take my advice, is I wanted her to look at the essay prompts early and get a draft of her essay done even before college boot camp. And she did do that. So she started to look at the essay prompts in like June of her junior year. She never showed me any of her drafts. I never saw anything that she wrote. I knew the topic that she wrote about, but she just kept it private, and I was fine with that. The reason why I felt that that was so important, especially for our family, is my senior, Emma, she does work over the summer, 5 days a week at a camp, and I knew she would come home from that summer camp at 5 o'clock and be exhausted, and as much as she said she would be doing her essay, there's no way that that was going to get done. So she had that complete with her to boot camp when it started, which meant when they were given the time to work on it, she was more working on her revisions. So that's another suggestion that I would give to you, is that to really look at those essay prompts early, decide on your topic, and if you can get into boot camp with those, a good draft, a solid draft of your essay, that's something really good. Another thing, go see your counselors. They're available. Emma would tell me that she would email Mr. Goldman frequently. He would always get back to her, and if he didn't, she would swing by his office to harass him. So definitely do that. We did visit some schools last year as well, which was great. Emma kind of narrowed her choices down to about 8 schools, and her plan was to apply to those schools early action, which she did. We were able to visit a few of them last year, but not all of them because of COVID restrictions. So essentially, the colleges that we didn't get to visit this past year, we've said that as she got into them, we would then visit them. So that's where we are right now, and she's got a lot of colleges to choose from, and it's about where she wants to go, as Liv said at this point.
Thank you. Maybe for our admissions counselors, if we can talk a little bit, there's always the debate, public and private. If you can talk a little bit about the difference between public and private schools.
So Stonehill College is a private institution. Like I mentioned, we're also religiously affiliated with the Congregation of Holy Cross, but that doesn't really play a role in our admissions process at all. I think we'll probably go back and forth a little bit, but I think one of the things with private schools that's going to initially be different usually the first thing that is brought up in conversation, is going to be the price tag. So private schools tend to be more expensive, but the breakdown of cost is also going to be different. So at a private institution, when you look at the total cost of attendance, we don't have anything else outside of that. So when you see that larger number, it's going to most likely include all of the student fees, all activities, everything related to living on campus. There will not be any additional costs outside of that unless a student adds something that would be considered outside of a standard residential student. So maybe they decide to buy a parking pass for the year. That is not an automatic assumption, so we don't build that into our cost of attendance, but a student may choose to do that. Additionally, we are also able to offer a little bit more financial aid that might look different than what a public school can offer. So we may be able to offer grant money or additional financial need-based aid that is not related to federal money. So there are some differences in terms of cost, but like Mr. Goldman said, you don't want to write any school off initially because of cost. You always want to see how that financial aid process plays out, because you never know what you may qualify for, because what your need might be at a private school will be different than at a public institution.
And for public schools, typically when you're looking at cost, you're going to see tuition and fees. So that's important to look at, especially with all the state schools. A lot of students will get really excited because they got the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, and that covers tuition. For Bridgewater, tuition is $910. The additional fees are where it gets a little more pricey. So that is definitely, again, as you mentioned, one of the biggest differences. Another difference is in the admissions standards and the acceptance process. So typically with the state schools, we are following strict state guidelines. So we are not able to be as flexible with those admission standards. If students are not meeting those specific requirements, we are not able to admit them. Whereas a private institution, they may have a little bit more flexibility to admit students who may be falling under those public and state guidelines.
When you get into the weeds a little bit more between private and public schools, there's going to be differences in funding. There's going to be differences in, facilities and ability to flex classroom sizes, things like that. I personally attended Stonehill, so I don't know the experience of going to a public institution, but there are differences sort of as you go along. But at the end of the day, you're going to get a great education, you're going to have a great social life, you're going to make lifelong friends, you're going to make relationships with mentors and professors, and kind of regardless of whether it's public or private, we want you to take advantage of whatever the school has to offer. So while there's differences between them in maybe how we offer things or availability or access to things, they're both great.
So, yeah, and I think it's important to note, I mean, and this goes back long before I was even looking to go to school, too. Are you going to get a better education at a private school versus a public school? No. You're going to get a different education. It's just the experience, okay? It could be a religious experience. It could be, the types of services or programs they offer on campus. But it's not, it has been is this myth that a private education is a better education. If you go south of the Mason-Dixon line, I got a very good friend of mine that works at the University of South Carolina, and he says down south, the perception is the opposite. People don't want to go to private schools because it's the public schools that have the reputation of being the better education. It's not true. It's just people's perspective. You just got to be very careful in this process of who's feeding you information and who you're bouncing that information off. I have a story from years and years ago. I had a parent that had asked me about a whole bunch of schools. And I was a relatively new counselor, so I didn't know everything. I knew enough, I think, at that point. But one of the questions was to take the SAT, how many times take the SATs. Now, back then, we didn't have what they call score choice. So if you took the SAT 3 times and you took an SAT subject test, no matter what the scores were, all the scores went to the college, Okay, so now you're submitting information to the college. Maybe you didn't do well on a subject test and you didn't need a subject test, but you felt it was important because more is better, which isn't always the case. So I had a long conversation with the parents, said, look, let's take them twice, let's evaluate it, let's see where we're at, and then we'll take it to the next level after that if we need to. Well, unfortunately, the parent didn't listen to me, and she had her child take the SAT 4 times, poor kid, and had him take 3 subject tests, and she was not applying to any schools that were requiring or even recommending subject tests. And the subject tests were not good. Okay, a lot of times I, as a counselor, would even talk to a teacher in that discipline and say, what do you think? Should they take the U.S. history test? Should they take the Math 2 test? And they would give me some good feedback to recommend to the students. Well, anyways, they didn't listen to me. Now they're all worried because the scores went off to the colleges. The colleges are evaluating every single test in addition to all the other things that went out. And I asked the parent, go, what happened? She goes, well, we were talking to my neighbor. And my neighbor told me I should do this. I should have her take as many of these tests as possible. I said, oh, is your neighbor a guidance counselor? No, he's a plumber. There's nothing wrong with being a plumber. But none of you are ever going to call me to fix your pipes. Okay? So, just, you're going to hear things. You're going to hear things on the radio, on the news. Every day when I drive in, I hear things about schools and how hard this is, or do this or do that. And I'm like, oh my God, who's feeding this information? Talk to the experts, whether it's the college folks, whether it's somebody in the school, a counselor, a teacher. Talk to the people that know. Okay, even a parent or a student that's there right now or who are just gone through the process, talk to them so they can share that information. But don't buy into what we call in our office the panic shopping. Okay, there's enough stress out there and enough to worry about. Let's cut through all the stuff that's not important and get to the stuff that is most important in here. There's a lot of great schools, both public and private. So let's move along to the interview and the visit. Now, I know that Jamie kind of covered a little bit of everything already, but that's okay. Appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about the interview. I can tell you right now, not a lot of colleges do interviews anymore. That's kind of a thing of the past. There are some smaller schools that really want to get to know their students. And it's important for them to get to know their students, so they do want to do an interview. If you're ever applying to a school that is offering the opportunity to come in for an interview, don't be nervous or scared about it. The thing you have to remember is that you are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, okay? Yes, they want to know about you and what you're going to bring to their school, but who's paying for this? Who's the customer here? You are. You want to make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck, and you want to make sure that they're going to be offering the things that are going to be important to you. So we in our office do spend time with students that are going on interviews if they come and see us, and we will put them through some very low-stress mock interviews and just cover the basic questions that they need to be prepared for. And the most common question is, tell us a little bit about yourself. And that freaks everybody out. It's not a trick question. I'm 17 years old. I play football. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. I enjoy playing guitar on the side. I do this. I've been challenged myself in the class. It's a little bit of everything. It's not just what kind of student are you. Okay? I'm really looking forward to doing this, or in the future, this is what I'm thinking about. It's just an opportunity to get to know each other. So that's my little bit about the interview. I'm going to let the admissions counselors talk about what they're looking for and the importance of the info sessions and the visits and the tours of the colleges.
So I will say with the interviews, so Bridgewater actually does offer an optional interview now. We started doing that when the pandemic first hit for a couple reasons. One was that we weren't really getting that face-to-face interaction with students at college fairs, so we really still wanted to have some sort of interaction with students. And the other component is that we know that the pandemic and hybrid learning, virtual learning has been really challenging for students. So we wanted to provide a platform not only for us to get to know you as a student, because when we're reviewing applications, we just see names on a paper. So it was a good chance for us to get to know the student, but also to hear some feedback about, hey, I had a rough semester, this is what happened, and just give us some intel and context as to, maybe what that student was experiencing during the pandemic or throughout different points in their academic career. So just know that an interview typically, as Mr. Goldman said, don't be nervous. It's an opportunity for admissions to get to know who you are, because we're not really seeing that on an application necessarily. We're just kind of seeing the facts. So it's a good opportunity for us to get to know you more. And then we also do typically open it up to students for what questions you have for me about the process, about what we offer, things like that. Just as Mr. Goldman said, for you to kind of interview us a little bit and make sure that we are a good fit. So that's kind of a little bit about the interview. And again, for Bridgewater, speaking specifically for Bridgewater, this is a supplement. It's in addition to all of your materials. That's not going to break you. If anything, it will help you. And I'm sure you can speak for Stonehill as well, but at Bridgewater, we're not looking for things to disqualify you for admissions. We're truly looking for all of the information to help you get accepted.
Yeah, just so for Stonehill with the interview, we've actually stopped offering evaluative interviews for our applicants. It's something that pre-pandemic we did have students, our student tour guide team, we had interviewers and they would be available for students who requested an interview. They were evaluative, so they did go into the application review process. Like Shannon said, they were never something that would break a student or anything like that. It typically only helped. But one thing I'll say on interviewing, this isn't a job interview. It's not a required element of the application process. If you're someone who gets very nervous with public speaking, or it gives you a lot of anxiety to think about like having to sit one-on-one with an admissions counselor or an admissions representative of some type, don't do it. There's no requirement for it. We don't want you to stress out about this process or add something to your plate that you are dreading. If you want to do an interview and the school that you're applying to offers it, by all means go for it. Why not? Talk about yourself, provide context, get that face-to-face time. But if it's something that you're thinking about right now and you're just saying, oh my gosh, I never want to do it, don't worry about it. If it's not required, don't do it. It's not a big deal. For us right now, Stonehill is offering the opportunity to speak with a counselor. It's not evaluative, so it does not go towards your application, but we also want to provide an opportunity for you to share any information about yourself that you feel is critically important in your application. So say there was a rough semester because of COVID, or there's something that happened during your 4 years that you want to provide some more context to, you can absolutely take the opportunity to do that. It's called Connect with a Counselor. Kind of cheesy, but that's what we landed with. And you'll chat with me as I'm the reader for Middleborough, and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about, and I can answer any questions that you have. But for visits, we offer kind of like a standard plethora of options. So we have student guided tours that last about an hour and 15 minutes. We have virtual information sessions. We have a self-guided tour as well as a virtual tour. And then for accepted students in the spring, we will offer panels hosted by our faculty members so students can learn more about academic programs. And then in the fall, we'll typically offer a similar set of online offerings. I talk about the online ones right now because as of right now, we don't have anything slated for in-person large-scale visits for our juniors, but the online platform also offers a lot more access to our campus than just a standard like Saturday activity.
And for Bridgewater, we are offering tours. We do summer tours as well. We do have Saturdays and holidays. In the fall, we will typically do our open house programs as well, and then in the spring, we'll do our accepted students days. Registration for most schools is typically online, so just make sure that you're registering ahead of time. I think it's always good too for like the school breaks to plan accordingly. I know Mr. Goldman, you've said in the past, try to save the local schools for like a Saturday or a weekday and use the April vacation and February vacation to kind of maybe go out of state, make a day out of it, see a couple schools, things like that. I think that's a good rule of thumb as well, because those local schools are right up the road and they're going to be there for you. I also encourage students to keep an open mind with the visit. As we were kind of mentioning earlier, social influence and different biases. When I toured Bridgewater, I thought I was going to hate it because it was 30 minutes from my house, and I thought it was going to be too close to home, and then I stepped on campus and I absolutely adored it. So you just truly never know how you're going to react to the school. And then also, we obviously live in New England, so weather happens, and sometimes that can influence and impact your emotions and feelings walking through a campus. So I always encourage students, if you think you had a bad experience and maybe weather might have influenced it, maybe give the school another shot, just to kind of see if the weather maybe influenced your mood that day as well.
Liv, did you do any interviews? or-
Yeah, so with all the colleges that I applied to around like 6. I visited each one of them. What I can't stress enough is taking the time to visit once, twice, maybe even 3 times if you are able to, because the first time, you may step on and you'll be like, oh, I love it, it's great. And the second time, at least I had for one college, I didn't enjoy it so much the second time I went on. I realized, what, this really isn't the best fit for me. Taking pictures of the school, so when you get home, you can look at it, really take into depth, like, can I see myself walking around here? Like they said, the feeling of as soon as you step on the campus, realizing, oh my gosh, this is where I could see myself. I had that with Penn State. As soon as I stepped on the campus, I was like, this is where I'm going. I can't see myself anywhere else. So really taking the time to go in with an open mind, visiting as many times as you can. Picking up pamphlets was a really good thing. It might sound cheesy, just, grabbing the pamphlet. But the amount of information they have, at least for Penn State, they did a virtual week where they had Google Zooms, where they just went over the school, the programs they offered, their application, their website. Just little things like that took into account really focusing on you was something that I really picked up on and appreciated when visiting each school.
Good, thank you. Did Emma do some,
Yeah, so we were able to visit between the spring and through the summer, 5 schools we were able to get to. In the beginning, again, there were lots of COVID restrictions, and then they subsided. I think that the college visit to the campus was extremely important. There were a couple schools that she visited that she thought she might want to go to, and she got there and she was like, I don't see myself on this campus at all. Additionally, there was one school, that being URI, that she kind of threw on her list thinking, oh, it's just, maybe I'll get in here, maybe it'll be a place for me to go. That when she visited, she absolutely loved it. The tour guide was phenomenal. She was able to ask a ton of questions. She loved the campus, and now that's actually one of her top schools. So I do think that the campus visit is extremely important.
Ask for your tour guide's information too. Like, the tour guides love it when their guests ask for their contact info or ask a ton of questions. I promise, you might be like, oh, I'm that kid asking a lot of questions or anything like that, but the tour guides love it. Like, they come back from tours and they're like, oh my gosh, this family was so engaging. I learned so much about them. I hope they come here. So be that family on a tour that asks tons of questions and asks questions to the guide and gets to know the people on tour. The guides live for it. They're just so excited about it. So I know it might be intimidating, but I promise they love it. They love it so much.
the tour guides actually become experts in walking backwards. Because they love answering the questions as they're bringing you around campus like this. And even talk to students that aren't part of the official tour. If the weather's nice, you're going to see people hanging out in a quad someplace or throwing a ball around, or, hey, how do you like it here? They love talking about their school. And they're not working for the admissions office. These are just the general, random, everyday student there will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And a lot of times they say, you know what? Wasn't what I thought, but I like it here. I'm not going anywhere. Did you talk to anybody, any of the students?
Yeah, so I got the chance of having my lovely parents go up to people sometimes and asking students while I stood in the corner. And they gave the most honest opinion you could get possible. They'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, what they like, what they don't like, what to consider. And it's really the best part because you get such an unfiltered response. And it's, especially if you just bring it up to them while they're just sitting, at like a quad chair. If you're just like, how do you like it here? They give you the most honest response, which is, to me, I value that a lot to get such an open and very freeing.
Yeah, you're getting the real deal when you do that. So for Heather and Sarah, Shannon and Sarah, sorry about that. Shannon and Sarah, I'm going on a college interview. Do I need to buy a suit? What should
No.
I wear in an interview?
So, you definitely don't need to, you know, wear your Sunday best, but I definitely think wearing appropriate attire. I wouldn't show up to an interview or even a campus tour wearing my pajamas or something like that. Definitely just make sure that you are kind of dressed appropriately. Even if it is like a t-shirt, just make sure, you know, you just look presentable. And I would say that's kind of the standard, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, same. Jeans and a shirt is totally fine. You know, just imagine what you want to present yourself in. One thing on here that I will say, you don't need to bring a copy of your unofficial transcript. Most colleges can't accept it if a student hands it to them. Transcripts need to come directly from a college for us to be able to evaluate it for any reason. If you want to bring it to show us like your class list or something, we could look at it for that reasons, but we can't accept college transcripts at the time of an interview. So you really don't need to bring anything except yourself and questions.
Now, if a student brings a transcript just to say, hey, these are some of the classes that I've taken, you know, is this what you'd be looking for? Would that be an appropriate thing to do?
We're pretty limited, from Stonehill's standpoint, we'd be pretty limited on evaluating a transcript that was placed in front of us. We'd only be able to kind of say like, that looks great, or I'm glad that you are enjoying your classes. We can't necessarily evaluate it if it's what we're looking for or not. That's pretty much the admissions process. We unfortunately would just be in a position to kind of list off like, we're looking for a student between blah, 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 you know, some facts and figures that are kind of, probably not what you're looking for. So, you know, if you have questions or concerns about where you might fit within a profile of a school, feel free to reach out to our offices and we can talk about that on a more individual basis.
And if you are going on a tour, or, you know, somebody takes the time to actually sit down and speak with you, whether it's on the phone or in person, a thank you note or an email, something, just recognizing they took some time to talk to you, those things all go into their admissions file, don't they?
They do. I actually save every thank you note that I get on my bulletin board in my office. So if you walked into my office, you'd see dozens of really nice notes that I've kept from my 5 years in admissions.
Just make the best impression you can.
And I will say too, it's not, I mean, I don't get a ton of them, so when I get them, it really does stand out to me. And even just if it's a follow-up email, hey, thanks for chatting with me. And a lot of the times too, if I meet a student at a school and they have a particular question, I'll say, hey, please follow up with me in an email, because now I'll have connected you to that school. I'll know that we had that interaction, and I'll know now later on when you email me the exact person that I'm talking to, so I can help you specifically. So if an admissions counselor says, hey, shoot me an email, do it, because it is really going to connect. We see hundreds of students throughout the several months that we are doing recruitment. So if you do take that time to reach out to us after, we will remember you, and we will be able to kind of give you a more tailored approach and answer those specific questions.
There are families that we stay in contact with throughout the entire cycle. There's people that we meet as sophomores in high school, and I'm still friends with their parents today. You know, so the connection that we build with our students is real, it's authentic. We do this because we love it. We do this because we're excited. I always say that admissions counselors are like the human version of a golden retriever. Like, we're just very excited people. You can't do this job without having that level of excitement. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're happy to keep a line of open communication. I only have one bulletin board of thank you notes in 5 years, so we'd love some more.
How do I set up a visit or an info session?
So typically, again, registration would be online. So visit the website. If you have any questions, you can always call the office and say, hey, how do I set up a visit? But typically, it's usually pretty easy. If you go right on the website, there's usually some sort of tab for admissions or for visiting the school. A lot of the schools will probably have you build a profile online too, so you can kind of track your application once it's submitted. But yeah, so registration right online, and you'll be able to see like a full listing of their offerings, whether it is an info session specifically, a virtual session, a campus tour, things like that.
If there's one thing that you do, please just do not use your high school email address for signing up for college things. I say that because when we communicate with you, or when the school might send you an email to remind you about the visit that you signed up for, A lot of schools have firewalls, and so that email will go directly to spam, or your email to us will go directly to spam. So set up a personal email address, first name, last name, birthday, or dog's name, birthday, whatever, at Gmail, at Yahoo, at iCloud, whatever it is, and make that your college professional email address. I made one in 11th grade. I still use it today as my professional personal email address. Just don't use your high school email address or like a work email address. A lot of places it will never hear from you, or you'll never find out you got accepted. That email address that you're using for College Board, for signing up for a tour, for signing up for an interview, whatever it is, make sure it's an email that you can always access, that doesn't have any firewalls in it, and that is going directly to you.
And a lot of the times too, the school email does shut down after a certain point, so you may miss important information. And I will also stress the importance of a professional email when you do create your own. And also emailing professionally and using proper etiquette. I've had a lot of students in the past year and a half that are like Dragon Slayer, and then they'll just be like, hey, did you get my app? And I'm like, I have no idea who I'm talking to. So if you can create a professional email and then email us and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. Can you please check the status of my application? That is much more helpful to us. So definitely keep that in mind when you are creating those email accounts.
Also, just beware of your social media too. There are admissions counselors out there that sometimes tend to get on some of the different apps out there. See, I wonder what this person's up to. And if they see a party girl out there, or inappropriate language, or things of that sort, that might not be the best impression. It's a very social media world today, I get it. But just remember the importance of this. It's not as big an issue now. Our firewall, we've worked with our tech department to try to eliminate as many of those issues as possible. We did have a lot of problems several years ago, and we haven't had that many now. But to what these folks were saying over here before, when you graduate, shortly thereafter, your email here at Middleborough is going to be shut down. And if that's the email address that they have, and they're trying to communicate about freshman orientation and upcoming events and things of that sort, you're not going to get those messages. So yes, set up something that's just as simple, maybe first name, last name at hotmail.com. Something as simple and as least offensive as possible. You'll probably end up using that for a lot of other things later on in life.
Can I just say one more thing?
Go ahead.
We obviously love our families and parents, but please, as the student, utilize your own email, because those are communications specifically intended for you. And we can set up separate emailings through like family services for parents. But those I know sometimes we have parents that say, well, my student doesn't check their email a lot. But this is going to be the start of their process, an independent journey. So it really is a good opportunity for you to exercise checking your email more frequently and utilizing those professional kind of techniques. So definitely, again, parents and families, we love you guys, but the student needs to be the one utilizing their own email for this process.
And it's an important habit to get in now, too, because as we get more and more into this college process, the school counseling department sends out a lot of emails to juniors, especially once you become seniors, of important dates and deadlines, not just college dates and deadlines, but we have deadlines to make sure we have enough time to adequately prepare all the records, and there's a lot of forms we need to fill out. If you want us to write a well-thought-out letter of recommendation, you don't want to dump it on us a couple of days before the application is due to the college. So we send out a lot of reminders. I spend a good chunk of my summer going through Naviance and setting up all these emails so they are automatically preset to go off and remind you need to get things in or check on certain things. So please start checking that email. And I would say, just like you would check your text messages, check it every day. I'm not saying check it every hour, but check it every day. Your teachers are starting, as I'm sure you know, are starting to use it a lot more too, as far as communicating important information. So it's really important that you the communication piece is in place. The other piece too is, I know you guys do like to talk to families as a whole, but it is important as you, as the student, as the candidate, to try to take the lead in that. Okay? If your parent, if your mother or your father is going to make every phone call for you and every email for you, that's not sending a good message either. And you really need to learn how to, in a controlled environment, how to start taking the lead on that, because next year, or the following year when you're off at college, mom and dad aren't going to be there with you. So if you have to contact somebody at the college, it'd be nice to have that practice on knowing how, and the comfort level of knowing how to do that.
Many admissions counselors, myself included, if we get an email from a parent requesting an interview, I will respond with, "Thank you so much for your inquiry. Please have your student reach out to me directly." I'm not going to schedule an interview with mom or dad because you're not the one applying to college. We read a lot of applications and we have a lot of communication that we know mom and dad wrote, and it's not great. It's not starting off on a good foot. So, students, it's hard to get the energy to write an email. I totally get it. I have to do it every day to get the energy to write an email. We're very nice people. Just email us. We can work with you. Don't let mom or dad do it for you.
And now we're going to move along to the essay, the application and the essay, and actually just kind of to go off of what you were just saying, Sarah. The essay, and we'll talk more about this throughout the rest of the year. The essay needs to be written in your own words. These guys are not stupid. They know when an adult has written something versus a teenager has written something. The application boot camp, your teacher is going to work very hard to make sure that you guys have well thought out high school level essays. So please don't have mom and dad do it. They're not expecting that, but they're expecting, something that's been well thought out and well written, but not by somebody that has taken technical writing classes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the application and the essay. What are you guys looking for as far as the information on the application? And what are you looking for in an essay, too, for that matter?
Yeah, sure. So for Bridgewater, and most of the state schools, but each state school does kind of have their own process. But for Bridgewater, truly the only requirements are the application itself and the high school transcript. Everything else is optional. So that includes your personal statement, your SAT scores, and any letters of recommendation. You're obviously more than welcome to send them, and we will review what you send us, but they are not required. In terms of the essay itself, it is kind of more general, but I always encourage students to write a story that not only is a story, but gives me a little bit of an essence of who you are as a person. We obviously do read a lot of the same stories about, athletes or performances and things like that. And those are great, but I encourage you to dig a little bit deeper and to really provide us with some information about who you are, maybe kind of give us a glimpse as to who you might be as a student or how you might kind of contribute to the community and what you might gain from your educational experience. Additionally, too, it does need to be written in your own words, but also make sure that you are taking the time to go over it, to review the grammar, to make sure that there's proper punctuation and capitalization. I've done boot camps with schools and read over some of the essays, and I'm like, when's the last time you looked at this? And it had been months previous, and I was like, I can kind of tell because, some of your grammar's not great, your punctuation. So just kind of tweaking those, because this essay is going to not only tell us about you, but the way that you format it and the way that you utilize language is going to also represent you, and it's going to tell us a lot about the care and attention and time and detail that you spent on it. So just know that everything that you submit is going to be a representation of yourself, because it's the only thing that we're going to see. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so for Stonehill, we do require 2 letters of recommendation in addition to the common application, which houses your college essay. We have a supplement piece called Why Stonehill. It's exactly as it sounds. We're asking, why Stonehill? We also have an optional honors essay, so if you would like to be considered for our honors program, you can submit that with your application. At Stonehill, the honors program, the only point of entry is as an incoming freshman. So if that's something you're considering as part of your college experience, I would recommend applying as a freshman with that. And then we're test blind, actually, so please do not submit any scores to Stonehill because we will not be able to consider them. One thing I wanted to note with the SAT and ACT is that as you compile your list of colleges, take careful note of their SAT or their testing policy. There are many schools that have gone test optional in response to COVID, with the exception of some programs. For those of you who are interested in nursing, that tends to be a program where they cannot go test optional. They need those test scores. Same thing with an engineering program or maybe a 4+2 or a direct entry to PA program, things like that. They may still require test scores. So just because the college is test optional doesn't mean that your exact program is going to be test optional. So just be really careful throughout that process. There are also schools who maybe are test optional for the current seniors, but next year they're going to go back to requiring test scores. So just be really careful with that process, and just make note of, you know, what each school's policy is. If it's a little unclear, just call them. They'll iron it out for you. But just jumping back to the essay, following Shannon, I mean, she summed it up exactly. We're all looking for the same things with the essay. You know, we really just want to see a good quality of writing. It should match whatever your level of English is. So for us, we look at the essay after we've looked at your transcript. So we're going to know approximately what level of English you've had, whether it's AP, CP, dual enrollment. We can take a guess of where your writing level is, and your essay should be right about the same. I think between the two of us, we've probably read like over 20,000 essays, probably even more. So we're very familiar with what quality of writing we're looking for. In terms of topic, that's up to you. Like Shannon said, we read a lot of sports essays. I didn't realize how many people could tear an ACL. Thousands. I didn't know that. So, you know, we read a lot of similar essays. Think about the things that you do in your daily life that are meaningful. Maybe it's a daily ritual. My favorite essay that I've ever read, it was in my second year, chocolate milk. It was about chocolate milk. This kid drank chocolate milk every morning. They tried all these different brands. They didn't, you know, there were some that were good, some that were okay. We had this one type of chocolate milk that he loved, and he had it every single morning. And he wrote his essay about how he was looking for a college that was similar to how he felt about his chocolate milk. Just something that matched him, that worked for him, that he liked and was excited about every day. He wrote his essay about chocolate milk. Like, what? But it was so good. It was a great essay. And to this day, 5 years later, I still think it's one of the best essays I've ever read. Makes me think back to what I wrote about and being like, ooh, gosh, what'd I do?
So it's fair to say, in addition to it being a writing sample, it's also an opportunity to kind of share a little bit about themselves and their personality and what they'll be bringing to that campus. So if you're a funny person, you're known for your humor, you can put a little bit of humor into it. If you are not known for your humor, now is not the time to try that out, okay? So you can put a little bit of yourself into it also. I've read a few online also that had nothing to do with college specifically, but just so well written, so thoughtful, and just like, wow, this person is really just got the creativity and it's somebody you just want to have around you.
On the Common App, the page that comes right before the essay is the activities list. It's where you're going to list out all the things that you've done in high school, all the things that you've committed time to. You don't have to write about any of those things. There is nowhere that it says that because you've been in dance for the last 16 years, you have to write about dance. You don't. Our VP at Stonehill, his favorite essay was written by a student athlete who football 4 years, soccer, you know, every sport you can imagine. But football was number one, and the first sentence of his essay was, "I hate football." He was done. He was all set with it, and he wrote his essay about how he was ready to start over and do something new and be known for something else. You don't have to attach everything together. It can be different. You know, maybe it's a part of you that other people don't know about. Maybe it's a part of you that is personal, you know?
And purpose, it has to have a purpose.
And we don't tell anyone.
Yeah,
you write about whatever you want. We don't, your essay is confidential to us. We don't share it with, like, oh, this person wrote about blah, blah, blah. We don't.
I had a friend of mine who was admissions counselor for years at Boston College. He used to do these panels for me, and he used to tell a story about how he reads more wonderful stories about grandma and grandpa, what wonderful people they are. And they would gladly accept grandma and grandpa based on that recommendation the student just wrote about them. So if you are writing about something, it does have to come back to you somehow. Okay, so if you're writing about grandma and grandpa and how wonderful they are, maybe as a result of your experience with them, these are my goals, my values, my beliefs. And you always try to make sure that it is tied into you, as creative as you want to get, that it comes back to who you are. Liv, a little bit about your essay?
Yeah, so what I can't stress enough is doing the college boot camp, because that's where I really got all my organization for my essay. I wrote my essay about a plane. Very random. I lived overseas for 5 years of my childhood, and planes were very significant to my life because I used them a lot to travel. I got to travel all over the world by the time I was 16. So I decided that that was something important to me, and throughout my essay I start about a plane, and by the end, you know how a plane has made me the most independent person that I could be at this point in my life. And in the college boot camp with Miss Connors, who was my teacher that helped me, she really helped me with the organization process of, where are you getting with this? Are you just, talking about planes because you're talking about planes? Or how does a plane make you who you are? How is that gonna, how are they gonna look at that and put that to your name and be like, wow, this story of her makes what we want. We want that because of her story. And I think with that, I got the chance to finish my essay. I had my recommendations in. I had about like 90% of my Common App done by the first day of school of my senior year. I had all of that done just because of college boot camp. So I can't stress enough the amount of organization and weight that was lifted off my shoulders going into the first day of senior year. So,
Jamie, how was Emma's process, essay process?
Same thing. I would
You-
back up
yeah.
what everybody just said about college boot camp. Like I said earlier, I had Emma work on her essay prior to the start of college boot camp, just because I knew that it was going to be a tough time for her and with being exhausted from working all day. But she was able to get that essay done, finalized, tweaked, and in the same position as Liv, going into school, her application was pretty much done.
And I would say that, if done the right way, the essay should probably take you the most amount of time in this whole process. Applications, name, address, telephone number. The most challenging question you're probably going to get on an application is, what's your social security number? And if you don't know it by now, you're going to have to learn that. Because it's going to be used a lot probably when you get to college. But the essay, and a lot of students go through all the busy work and they get all the other stuff done and they say, I got 2 weeks left before my deadline, now I'm going to write my essay. Wrong way to go. Okay, the essay is something that you want to start, work on it for a little bit, maybe not even write, make notes, experiences you've had where you learn something about yourself, challenges and obstacles you've overcome. You may not even know what your essay question is yet, but significant moments in your life. Just start putting everything on a piece of paper. Sometimes when I'm doing projects like that, I have a pad of paper by the side of my bed, or now I use my phone, and I just have a notes page that I just write these random things down. And then when I'm ready to actually sit down and start putting together, I may not even write, I may start putting it into groupings and stuff, or phrases or something. Then maybe I'll start with a rough draft after that. And then you want to get away from it for a while. Did you ever read something like 3 or 4 times and then you said, what did I just read? You're not even paying attention to it anymore? It's the same thing with the essay. You might be looking at reading over the same mistake 5 or 6 times because your eyes are tricking you at that point. You want to get away from it. Come back with a fresh perspective and then look at it again. Then when you get that solid draft, have an English teacher proofread it if they're willing to do that for you. Then you make corrections. You go back and have it proofread again. You keep going through that cycle until it comes back nice and clean. The boot camp, I can't stress enough how important that is. If you are on free or reduced lunch, there is a waiver process for that, so you don't have to worry about the cost of the boot camp. I think the boot camp was a boot camp last year. It was like $70 or something?
yeah.
So don't worry about the cost. Mr. Brannigan can work that out with you. And I know nobody wants to spend a week in their summer. And it's not the whole day. I think it's half days, right?
No, it was, I think, 12 to 2.
Yeah.
It was
okay.
not bad.
So, but you know what? As Liv said, you come back to school, and your process is just about done. Now you can just focus on keeping your grades up, which is important, and enjoying your senior year, because it can get really, really stressful if you don't if you wait and push everything off. And that's when you end up not doing a thorough job on things, and maybe you don't pick the right school, or you don't put the right, quite the best essay out there you could. All those little things can make a difference in the process. So that's one of the things you really want to take the time. The boot camp, you'll spend the first 4 days with the English teacher for a couple hours. And believe me, when Miss Davis was doing it, whew, boy, man, she was working 24 hours a day. That's how important it was to her. And she trained Miss Connor really well last summer, really, really well. So, so you're going to be in good shape there. And then the last day of boot camp, you will spend with the school counselors. We will open up a common app with you, and we will go line by line through that common app. We will send an email out earlier in the summer telling you what family information you're going to need to bring with you, so you have all the information there. And then we will go line by line with that, and we will stop and we will answer the questions until we get through the whole thing. That's a 3-hour session, but it's well worth it, because when you walk away, you will be probably at least 90% done with the whole process at that point. So it is time, money well spent. And believe me, we get you don't want to be there. You think we want to be there in the summer too? But it makes our jobs easier also when we come back to school, because to sit down with a student and start from scratch, you're looking at an initial meeting of an hour and a half. Multiply that by about 70 students per counselor. Okay, that's a lot of time, and then there's a whole lot of follow-up. So it's important to us to be able to kind of get a jump on it, just like it is for you guys to get a jump on it. And then everyone can just move along and take care of other things that are important to them.
I just want to say, we work with a lot of high schools, and the boot camp is not something that every school offers. This is a very special, amazing service that this high school offers. Typically, when I work with private schools, they'll require their juniors to do things, but not a lot of public schools even offer this level of care or this level of attention, especially during the summer. Seniors are coming back, first day of senior year, and they're just like jam-packed with things to do, and then add the college application process on top of it. So I really encourage you, if it's something that you can do and have the time for and the means for, definitely sign up for this boot camp. I'm jealous of it. If I could rewind back to 2011, this is amazing. So kudos to Middleborough for offering such an amazing set of panels as well as a boot camp. The feeling of being done before the first day of senior year is incredible.
Yeah, and to add on that, when you're gonna be in senior year, there's so many things that you're not even planning for to worry about, like your transcripts, letters of recommendation that you're gonna have to worry about. So having your essay, your application, all those done already, on the first day of school, I can't say I've had a more stress-free senior year. The application process just flew by in such a breeze just because of that boot camp.
And when did you get your acceptance?
I got my acceptance December 6th for Penn State.
December 6th. We have
Nice.
kids that haven't even applied to school yet.
Yeah.
In this senior class. And you're sitting there on top of it going, huh.
I couldn't believe it. I come to school every day and can't wait to go.
Now the hard part is keeping your grades up,
Oh,
finishing
yeah.
up strong.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any final comments from the panel before we open it up for questions? Was there anything?
I just wanted to mention about like the application process itself
Yeah.
too. So obviously, we mentioned the Common App. So Common App is a huge application to apply to a bunch of different schools for anybody who doesn't know. Most schools will have their own application as well. Rule of thumb with that is if you know you're maybe applying to 1 or 2 schools, you can just apply to the school via their website. If you know you're applying to maybe a handful of schools or more, use Common App. That's definitely helpful to kind of cluster those together. And then you do typically have different deadlines. I think it's very important to be aware of those deadlines. Talk to the schools specifically as well to find out what their deadlines are. There's 3 different types of deadlines. You have early decision, early action, and regular decision. Know with early decision that it is binding contractually. So if you apply to a school early decision and you get accepted, you have now committed to going to that school. Early action is different. It's a way for you to express interest in the university that you're applying to, but without the contractual obligation. And typically you will find out sooner. Like you said, you'll typically find out in December, mid-December. So that's a good way to go if you want to get it off your plate. And find out what the schools are requiring for early action as well. For example, for Bridgewater, I have a lot of students who stress and say, well, I'm not going to have all my materials prepared by that time. The only thing you need to have in by that deadline is the application itself. All the other materials can come in after the fact, just get the application in by that deadline. So keep that in mind as well. And then regular decision, that's typically for most schools a priority deadline. You know, you have to have it in by that date in order to get your acceptance letter and to be able to commit by that May 1st deadline. So just keep that in mind as well. And with early action, typically students are not getting rejected during that phase. So if you're nervous that you might not get in, just know that typically they will defer students to the regular decision pool, typically ask for follow-up grades like quarter 1, quarter 2 grades, and take another look at your application to kind of increase that admissibility potential.
Just to follow up on early action, I know that there's a lot of emphasis on applying early, get done early. If for some reason there was a semester that you had, or even a year in high school where your grades dropped, or there was a family situation that required you to take your focus away from school, and you are really wanting your first semester senior year to boost your overall GPA, applying early may not be the best fit for you. Early action is great for those students who have had consistent performance, you know, all 3 years, and then 12th grade is going to be about the same. Yeah, early action would be a good fit. At Stonehill, I would probably advise you to apply early action if you know 9 through 11 were smooth sailing. If at some point in between 9th and 11th grade there was a year or a semester where you were not able to show your academic abilities very well, and maybe there was a lower grade or series of grades, I would recommend applying regular decision so we can see those first semester senior year grades as recent coursework. Keep in mind that if you're applying early action, the most recent coursework we'll see is from the summer before or from the year before. So we're not going to have anything new to go off of. If you are hoping your senior year is going to be a time for you to show your academic strengths, applying later is totally fine. There is no stigma that comes with applying later or earlier. Just pick a deadline that's right for you, that you can achieve, that you can meet, and you'll be good.
So, and it should be noted also that not every school has all 3 of those deadlines, okay? Some schools just have regular decision or rolling admissions, which means there's no deadline, you can apply anytime. Now, there's positives and negatives to rolling admissions. There's always a school you can apply to in the process. However, with the rolling admissions, you send in your application, they read it, they make a decision. With a concrete deadline, they wait for everything to come in at that deadline, and they process everyone together and pick the students they feel the best that will fit within the school. But some schools, Boston University is a good example. They have early decision, but they do not have early action, okay? And that early decision, as they said, is a binding contract that you and your parents and your school counselor are signing. And the colleges, I believe, can have access to find out where you applied early. So, and I had a student a few years back who applied, not from the school, but had applied early decision to Bentley and to Babson College. She got into both. She was recruited to play tennis at both schools, and they found out that she applied because there must be some sort of list that everyone's on, and then her decisions were rescinded by both colleges, and she ended up going to a school that was the only school that was available to her at that point, and it was not a good situation. So please don't play that game. You're not going to find a lot of school counselors that are big fans of early decision because you're applying for all of those deadlines. They usually fall on the 1st or the 15th of the month. Each college will pick one of those dates between November and December. And then you find out probably either just before or right after the holidays, you'll find out. But you're not going to find out about financial aid for months after that. So if you do get into a Boston University, which is a great school, it also costs over $70,000 a year. And now they know they've locked you in, and maybe they don't offer you that much money in financial aid. What are you going to do? So you got to be very careful in that process. Early action, non-binding, you can apply as many schools as you want early action. And you do not have to make a decision until May 1st for the early action schools. We'll talk much more about that in the next 2 workshops. Any other Okay. We appreciate you guys all sticking around. It's been a very long night. Hopefully, it's been informative for you. I did promise our reps from Stonehill and Bridgewater a couple of minutes just to talk about their institutions, because they did take the time to be here tonight. So I don't know if you want to start, Shannon?
Yeah, so I'm obviously from Bridgewater State University. We're super close to you guys. We are a state institution, public institution. We do have about 11,000 students on our campus. We're a liberal arts university, which means we offer a wide array of different majors for you. We do have Division III athletics, 22 different varsity sports. We have intramural and club sports as well as options. Over 90 clubs and organizations on campus as well. Opportunities for study abroad, internships, undergraduate research across all disciplines. So truly a lot of different opportunities for our students to engage with the campus. And obviously too, you know, you're only going to be in classes a couple hours a day, so those involvement pieces and components are very important. We do have a full listing of our involvements on our website, so definitely check it out. We have, as I mentioned, been offering tours and information sessions on Friday mornings as well. So definitely, if you guys haven't visited the campus, I strongly encourage it. Come check us out. Again, we're right down the street. We do have two different deadlines. We have the early action and regular decision, which is the same universally every year. So early action is November 15th and regular decision is February 15th. And I strongly encourage, if anybody has any questions, to either follow up with myself or give our office a call. We're obviously more than happy to help you guys throughout the process. And I definitely wish you guys the best of luck with the college search process.
Thank you, Shannon.
So hi, I'm Sarah, and I work at Stonehill College. I work with our undergraduate incoming freshman class as well as our transfer population. You know, transfer is certainly something I'm happy to talk about. If you guys have questions later down the road, feel free to call me. But Stonehill College is right up the road from Bridgewater. Hop on 24, jump 2 exits, and you're right there. We are a private Catholic school of about 2,500 students. We're predominantly residential, so over 80% of our students remain on campus throughout the school year. We're known for business administration, education, the sciences, and criminology, as well as our healthcare administration program. We are predominantly undergraduate. We do offer a handful of graduate level classes or graduate programs, but we don't have any 4+1 programs. We offer a wide array of liberal arts majors, as we are a liberal arts college. Study abroad, community service, student engagement. Like Shannon said, you're spending a shockingly small amount of time in classes during the week, and the rest of your time is going to be filled with other activities. So we are a Division II school. We do recruit and offer athletic scholarships because of that Division II, and we are starting a Division I women's hockey team. This year will be its first year. I loved Stonehill. I went there. It was great. I actually was one of those kids that went in and said, I'm transferring out of the first semester because I didn't want to go there. I didn't get into my dream school. And I went to Stonehill and I was like, fine, I'll go here, but I'm going to leave. But then I loved it. I made the best of a situation that I felt like I had to be in. My parents would say differently, but I ended up having the most amazing 4 years of my life. Throughout this process, you know, you're going to have expectations and you're going to have assumptions on places. I challenge you to get rid of those and visit every school with an open mind and approach everything with an open mind. You're going to get a lot of opinions. I feel like I'm at a stage of life now where there's a lot of weddings going on, and I think applying to college is similar to planning a wedding. You're going to get a lot of opinions. People are going to want to give you their advice. They're going to want to tell you what to do and who to invite and all this other stuff. This is your process. Find your home. Find where you're happy. If you visit my college and tell me this isn't where I'm happy, I'm going to tell you, then get out of here. Go find your home. We don't want you to be anywhere that you aren't going to thrive and become an amazing individual. So our dates and deadlines are on our website, and I truly wish you all the best of luck. This process isn't going to be daunting with the help of Middleborough here. So good luck with everything.
So if there are any questions, we have a microphone right in the middle of the auditorium, so anybody that has the courage to get up and speak into the mic, we'd be more than happy to take a few questions. Or have we had enough for one night? Yeah?
So, early admissions,
I'm going to let our admissions experts talk about that.
So I think it depends on the program and how competitive it is. So for example, at Bridgewater, if you're applying early action to the majority of the programs, it's not really going to have a major impact. The one program that we do encourage students to apply early action is our aviation flight training, because we're only able to admit about 75 students every year. So we really do encourage students, if you're looking at that program, apply early action, because those spots may be filled if you don't. No, no. Right.
Most schools don't do that, where it's like if you're interested in psychology, you have to apply early because there's only a certain amount of seats. Because there's so much fluctuation with students picking, changing majors and kind of moving in and out of programs, a lot of schools for sort of the liberal arts programs, that's not typically the case. I mentioned earlier, like nursing, engineering, pathways to physician's assistants or early entry to PT programs. Those tend to have certain amount of seats because they are considered cohorts, where like maybe there's accreditations or tests that they have to kind of go through sequentially. Those are programs that may have special deadlines. So Stonehill College is in Easton. We kind of have, a sibling up in New Hampshire called St. Anselm's College. They're known for their nursing programs. They're going to have a different admissions deadline for their nursing program. Or they're going to say nursing students have to apply early action. And it's typically spelled out if there is a program like that. Versus like the whole school being under that process. Does that make sense? Okay.
And I would add to that, if anybody in here is considering nursing as their major, regardless if it says early action, apply early action. There are so many people out there that want to become nurses, and there's just not enough seats in these programs. UMass Amherst takes 70 students a year into their nursing program, and you cannot transfer in as a sophomore or a junior. 70 students in a school the size of UMass is not a lot. Even UMass Dartmouth has a nursing program, and we always recommend you apply early because there's just not enough seats in these programs. Most of the schools, I would hope, would list something like that and say early, but we have come across a handful of schools that don't specifically mention that. So if you are thinking about that, I would speak with your counselor just to kind of give them a heads up on that so we can make sure that we're working to get everything out in a timely way for you.
I agree on that with nursing. I plan on being a nursing major, and at least for Penn State, their acceptance rate for the nursing program was only 5%. So early action was definitely a good decision if it's something that's going to be so competitive like that.
Other questions? Okay, so again, I want to thank you all for coming out and for staying. I want to thank the panel for coming and doing such a wonderful job tonight. I'd like to thank Sean Siciliano and Adam Pelletier, our tech folks who set all this up and also set up the virtual link for us. And most importantly, I want to thank our custodians who are going to clean up after us tonight. We will be around for a few more minutes. If anybody wants to come up and ask a specific question, we'll be happy to answer those. And if not, have a good evening, everybody.